Well, this morning we've had a great sit here in the stand, and we're just about to get out. And I had planned, we're shooting several videos today, but one I really had planned is how to stay warm in the deer stand. And this is a good morning for this video and kind of an example. Um, I use First Light clothing. This isn't a First Light commercial, but I will use what they have as an example of how to stay warm. But I'm going to go over some basics that you need to stay warm in the deer stand from head to toe. And this goes back into my Michigan hunting back into the 80s. Where we must have come close to frostbite sometimes or hypothermia because we didn't have a lot of good clothes. We tried to layer it, and just so many layers. We didn't have any quality layers, and we got really cold. I lived in the UP of Michigan for 14 years, hunted up there. There were times where I went out, sat in the morning, and came back into the house and literally had warmed up to minus 12. I don't even know what temperature it was when I went out, but it was really cold. I've had times where I've sat in 10 degrees and with 25-mile-an-hour wind. This morning we're in the high 20s, low 30s, and we probably have 15-mile-an-hour winds with the forecast. So we've had a couple inches of snow. So we've had to deal with not only the cold but the moisture, and in making sure that that's not getting into our body, that we're using the right materials. And so I'm going to go step by step how you can stay warm in the deer stand. I'm actually, this is bothering me a little bit, so I'm going to take this off. You can see we've kind of sat here not moving much. So I've always looked at it like that's not bad camouflage, all this snow on top of you. You just have to make sure if a buck comes in that you don't move too quick and all of a sudden you're this big dark figure after all the snow falls off immediately in the stand. So I'm going to start with the feet. The feet are critical. And obviously, I'm diabetic, so I have poor circulation in my feet, and I really have to be mindful of keeping my feet warm. My basic boots that I wear, they're the Lacrosse 1600 gram, and they're a very warm boot. I can remember 3 years ago when my feet didn't get as cold. Boy, I could sit from 20 degrees in the morning to 25, was warming up to 30, 35, 40, and I would have no problem with an all-day sit. But now I've had to manage my feet a little bit better, even with the same boots I used to have. I had some old mouse boots. The old military surplus are very warm, and I've used all types of felt pack boots, very warm. But again, going into the last couple of years with diabetes, a little bit more numb now in the stand. And so this morning, for example, it's high 20s, 30. I'm just wearing my standard boots. Don't need any other help. I'm wearing a over-the-calf heavy merino wool sock from First Light, and I'm wearing a compression sock that's a medium weight under that from First Light. And so I have those two socks on, and at this temperature I feel pretty good. Now when it gets down into that 15-20 degree range, and there's a big difference too if I'm going to be facing the sun. There's sometimes where I'm facing the sun, that sun's going to be rising, it's 25-30 degrees, and that really warms you up fast. But on a day like today, there's no sun, wind's blowing right at my toes, and I'm still fine. Now that next step that I take it down, they have a product out there called ThermoShield. I believe that's what it's called, and they're booties that you can zip over your boot. You have to order several sizes larger than, in fact, mine are only size 10 boots, and these Lacrosse boots, I should have the biggest ones they make. What's nice about those, they're packable, very easy to bring into the stand, and then when I get on stand, I can slip them over my boots. Before I zip them up, I put a heat pack on the top of my boot. So I'm actually zipping the heat pack into that ThermoShield layer, so the heat pack is between my boot and the ThermoShield, and then I can zip it up. Those have kept my feet down, warm down into the teens, 10 degrees, very cold, long sits, and so I've relied on that heavily. There's times back in the day where you take some insulated pants, put your boots into each pant leg, and then fold the remaining pant leg. You pull the pants up to about your knees, and then you fold the pants down below your boots. So that's something that can definitely work in a pinch. We've had to do that when we've not dressed appropriately or brought the right clothes on a trip. So it's a good way to improvise something you can do. Feet are critical, obviously. One thing that I do different, I know a lot of you have probably seen that I wear my pants tucked into the boots in the early season and up around my knees. But when it gets really cold like this, I really like to pull that extra insulation layer all the way down to the top of my boot and zip in, and so I have that extra layer of warmth all the way down my calf and all the way down to my ankle. It really helps. Now, when you talk going up into your upper body, now whatever type of clothing you use, you're using that quality outer layer. And to me, a quality outer layer means bibs and then a quality jacket, insulated jacket. I'm actually wearing the Sanctuary bibs and jacket are equivalent right now from First Light, and that's a very high quality, very cold weather jacket combination and bibs. And I like the bibs because they come up around your chest, they keep your midsection warm, and you have to keep your midsection warm. This is not a time for pants and tucking in, and you really need to have those bibs coming all the way up. And so that's critical for me, that outer layer. Now, there's a lot of quality outer layers out there. You know, a lot of them are not made for bow hunting and for maneuverability in the stand. For example, very warm jacket, but this is very tapered right down to the gloves. And so for shooting a bow, I don't need a arm guard or anything like that. And so the high quality clothings, and First Light is a very high quality, extremely high quality, but those high quality outer layers are going to be made for bow hunters and hunters in mind, not just to have a big warm fluffy jacket over top. They're going to fit nice and give you the most amount of warmth without bulk. Now, those outer layers, very critical, obviously. Warm jacket. I do not like a bunched up jacket down here with an elastic waist. I like doesn't necessarily have to be a full parka, but at least something straight down there so that it's not binding and bunching up when you're sitting down. And again, you have the bibs on, so you don't really worry about you're covering your midsection at that point anyways, like you would with a jacket. Now, that outer layer, critical. You know, you do get what you pay for in life, and that's no different with hunting clothes. And the cool thing about that is when you buy quality hunting clothes, they're going to last you a lifetime. I had some Cabela's old Gore-Tex Thinsulate fleece clothing that I was given for a Christmas present back in 94, 95, and I turned that over to my kids in 2015. So think about that, how long that actually lasted, and still good, and able to give it to the kids and have them keep warm in something at that time. So whatever you can afford, it is worth it. And it gets into the materials that are used, and that gets into the layering. So you have the outerwear, the bibs, jacket, warm boots, covering your boots up if you have to. I've used all kinds of heat packs inside the boots, and I don't really trust them too much. My feet get sweaty walking in. A lot of times we're going uphill 35-40 minutes. Diane had to do that this morning, walk uphill 35-40 minutes to get into the stand, and you get sweaty. So if you're using a heat pack and putting it down in your socks, in those areas they get wet and then they become ineffective. So you have that outer layer, your boots, and really important that you have quality layers on the inside, and that's where I feel like First Light really excels. But they excel in a variety, a huge variety of merino wool. And so right now I'm wearing a mid-weight merino wool long sleeve shirt, and that's called the Fuse. And then I have the Furnace, and the Furnace is it's very heavyweight. It's almost like a sweater. They have a quarter zip, and I'm wearing actually the Henley this morning. And I'm wearing the Furnace long johns too. And so with that heavyweight merino wool, what's really nice about wool, I mean, that goes back into, for decades, people talking about the warmth of wool. And even when it gets wet and sweaty, it still offers warmth, and that's what I love about it. And so First Light excels in all those types of merino wool layers. They're washable, not like the old style wool where you had to dry clean it or line dry it. And really good under layers. And so that's my basics. You know, for this morning, I'm wearing the long sleeve shirt. I'm wearing the Furnace Henley, And so I have a very thick layer and then a midweight layer, and then I have the heavyweight long johns. And that's for that 25, 30 degree, 35 degree temperature. And obviously a lot of snow. So if I'm getting damp at all on the way out, I had some snow fall off this tree. It's been falling on me a little bit today. Go down the back of my neck at first when I was first in here, and you get some dampness in here, even if you have waterproof clothing, good clothing. So that's the basics right there. The next step up, they have it's called the Sawtooth Hybrid vest. It's got a little bit of insulation on the front for your core and the back, more vented on the sides, and that's a perfect combination. It's pretty thin, but a very good layer. That's what I step up to next. And then for really warm temperatures, or really cold temperatures, I'm using the Brooks down vest, and it's a very thin layer vest. It's nylon, so it's got some windproofing capabilities, but that's that next layer. So the same heavy stuff down below, and then that layer. And you know, this is a sanctuary. This is the coldest gear that they have. And they have the Solitude layer, which is more, it's still cold weather, but it's a step down from this. So you can imagine all the pairings when I'll use, for example, on my legs don't get as cold, so I'll use the Solitude bibs, and then I'll put the Sanctuary jacket. And so there's a lot of different ways to layer, especially when you start figuring in the different vest, different merino wool layers you can find. And whatever brand you're using, it's the same idea. You're still using the merino wool, you're still using quality long johns in layers that are still offer warmth when moist, and then you're adding the vest, better vest, windproof type material or nylon, and wind resistant, and then that way you can really mix and match, and you're not wearing a lot of bulk. You're wearing quality layers of outer insulation, and then those inner vests and high quality thick merino wool. So that's moving up, and we get into the head area, and you can see the face mask that I'm wearing. This is the warmest face mask, I believe they call it the Tundra, that I've ever used. And I wear face masks, I've worn them since I was a teenager to stay warm. So that's part of it. But you can see on the neck right here, I have this jacket zipped all the way up. But even this Henley comes up pretty high right here. A lot of times I use a quarter zip. If I'm using one of the vests, they zip up here. So I really like keeping my neck warm. Now they sell neck gaiters, and the neck gaiters are very warm. I don't like that bulk right here. I feel constricted, and I worry about my bowstring pushing against that. But a lot of people use those and like those. I'm just not a fan of the neck gaiter because it's just so bulky. I like having these quality layers around my neck right here. There's no wind getting in. And then that face mask. And then you can see what I'm doing today with the wind and the snow. I'm using a good brimmed hat right here. And then I'm putting an insulating hat over that. So I actually had an insulating layer. Then I had the hat to keep the snow off my face. I've actually hunted where it's been cold enough to where icicles form off the hat. They hang down an inch or two and they just sit there because you're obviously not moving much. It's frozen, freezing cold, and you can still stay warm. So I'm using those multiple layers. If I'm using a mid-weight face mask, I might even use a second face mask. I'm using some type of brimmed hat, whether it's an insulated brim hat that you put on, and then a lot of times I'm putting another layer on the top, because if your head's cold, you're going to be cold. And finally, the hands. Hands are so critical. First Light doesn't offer a hand warmer tube yet, so I bought a cheap one, and then I took one of their gaiters, a waterproof gaiter, which is something I've done since the early 90s, and I put a waterproof gaiter around the hand warmer tube, and so I'm toasty warm in here. I actually have my phone in there, it stays warm. And then I have 2 of these Heat Factory heat packs. I've used these for decades, and this one right here, the Heat Factory, is by far the best. These are the large ones. We buy them by the bag or by the box. A lot of them, we bought 50. The last time we bought them, we bought 50 at a time. And these are something that I rely on heavily. These Heat Factory brands will last about 24 hours, and probably 24 hours plus. If I start these in the morning, tomorrow morning they'll be warm, but I wouldn't rely on them going out tomorrow morning and staying warm. So I usually put 2 in here, and I put those towards the outside, and then I roll my hands up as fists underneath, and you can see I wear pretty light gloves. I want to still be able to use my phone. I want to be able to touch a trigger very easily. I want to be able to use my release for my bow and not be constricted. And you'll find even in the coldest temperatures, if your hands are toasty warm, for you to take them outside, hold your bow for 5 minutes. I'll even hold my bow with one arm and put my right hand in and keep it warm. But as I've mentioned many times before in videos, I've been using this hand warmer tube since I was a teenager and couldn't afford to buy one. They had them at Dunham Sporting Goods in Waterford. Couldn't afford one, so my mom had some old layers of wool. She sewed them together, made me one, put a big safety pin on, and that was my first hand warmer tube. So I've been using a hand warmer tube since the 80s to keep my hands warm, and that's really saved me on many, many hunts. And I found as far as a windproof and waterproof layer, putting a waterproof gaiter around it is that next step. And this is a really good alternative around here, you know, for we're in Minnesota, for keeping your hands warm. And really put my grunt tube in here, and my phone's in here, sometimes a little thin flashlight. But I use it as a little bit of a pack, but then at the same time, that's the #1 way to keep your hands warm. And I use this hand warmer tube the entire season, so I'm using it in the early season too, for early season bow hunting. So that outer layer, your head, multiple layers on your head. So really that quality base layer, we use the merino wool. I highly recommend that. Layers of merino wool too. I have some merino wool t-shirts that I use from First Light. And so I don't know if there's another hunting company out there that has as many merino wool layers and types of clothing as First Light. They really excel in that. And then these outer layers are beautiful. And so that outer layer, your boots, putting extra layers on your boots if you need to, you can stay warm in the deer stand. It's really, I mean, we're on a pretty frigid morning this morning, and you can see we just kind of sat here and been facing the wind. And finally, when you're covering your heads, your hands, the hand warmer tube, covering up your feet, quality outer layer, quality layers on the inside. Again, these hunting products that you buy, they're made to last a lifetime. So, you know, it's crazy the money I see, whether it's people spending money on bowling leagues or boats or fishing, whatever it might be, but then they complain about spending a few $100s on an outfit that's going to last them, or $800 or $700. It's going to last them literally 30, 40 years. It's almost like you can't afford not to buy something that's high quality because it lasts so long and you get so much enjoyment and comfort out of it. And it's doing something that you can create memories to last a lifetime in. Finally, after you cover yourself, you're covered with your clothes, your different layers, make sure you eat some food. I know when I have my all-day sits, it's so critical whether you're bringing some peanuts, candy bars. I have to admit, on opening day of gun season in Wisconsin, I had both my candy bars gone by 11 o'clock. So, but they do offer warmth. They help take that chill off. It gives you energy to burn, and that's really critical. One of the things, if your stomach's a little bit upset with eating food, I always start with a slice of cheese or a hunk of cheese. That seems to keep you from having to use the restroom for the entire day. And then I'm usually adding those candy bars, a sandwich, peanuts, something like that. If you're worried about the noise from opening things, put your food into a Ziploc bag and you can keep quiet. And not only can you keep quiet getting your candy out, but you can stay warm. And there's no reason for you to freeze out of the deer stand. And, you know, we have a blustery Minnesota day right now. It's going to get colder later in the year, I'm sure. I have a bow tag left in Wisconsin. I actually used my gun tag last night. We'll have that story coming soon on a probably my #1 target buck that was there that I passed up a couple times last year. And I was fortunate to run into him last night with the muzzleloader. So I still have a bow tag in Wisconsin. Wisconsin season goes to the end of January. We have a lot of hunting to do. I believe it's November 24th right now. So just before Thanksgiving. And I just want you guys to stay warm. You know, I've gone back and forth with layers and what I've been wearing since the 80s. This is my 35th year hunting, whatever it is, long time ago. But northern Michigan, UP of Michigan, Minnesota, Wisconsin. And you can imagine we've seen it all. I hunt almost every season all the way through January somewhere at some point. I just want you to stay warm, have a safe hunt, and make sure you don't skimp on that clothing. I think you'll reward yourself. Christmas present, whatever it may be, accumulate some good stuff. Sell something if you have to. Good clothing is highly worth it, and again, you definitely get what you pay for in most things in life, and hunting clothing is no exception. Have a safe and warm hunt this fall and into the winter. Now I really wanted to add something to this video, so you have to excuse this a little bit interruption with the flow. This is a very good tip. This is something I learned in the UP of Michigan a long time ago, is when it's inclement weather like we showed today out in the snow, when there's rain coming down and it's very cold, when it's very bitter, then using some high quality warm gloves, mittens to get into the stand, walking in is a great idea, but obviously I'm not going to hunt with these. So what do you do with them? Well, don't do what I did in the UP of Michigan, and that's you go in when it's 15 degrees, it's snowing, blustery, and you walk in a mile to get to a stand, and you sweat up. And so your gloves get a little bit damp, and then you take your damp gloves and don't put them on a ladder, stick, or a tree step and let them sit till when you get down at night. Now your hands are freezing cold, and you need to still walk out. It's sub-zero weather, snow, it's damp out. You have to walk all the way back, and now you have frozen gloves at the bottom of your stand. If you try putting your hand in there, you're gonna freeze. So the best thing, wear some kind of great mittens. These are some really nice First Light. We actually use these on the Quiet Cats because even if it's 45 degrees and you have a 2-mile ride back, your fingers tend to freeze if you don't have something covering them up. We use these. Once you get to the stand, take them, and you can see I don't have as much insulation right here. In the garage even right now, it's fairly cold. You take these gloves, just slide them down into your jacket, right against areas that are exposed around your midsection and core. That keeps the gloves warm, pliable, and it adds another layer of insulation. You can see it's pretty flat right there. You zip up your jacket. Now when you get down and go out, you have warm mittens that you can slide on for after the hunt, whether you're getting out in the morning or afternoon or evening. And that's what I learned the hard way. Well, most of the stuff's the hard way. You know, freezing with your fingers, your feet, your core, not wearing the quality long johns and moisture wicking next to skin tops, bottoms. And this is another tip that you guys can use and really help you out this year and staying warm, because there's nothing worse than having to walk back to the car or wherever it is with frozen fingers trying to hold your bow and everything else. This is a good tip that can help you out. I want to make sure I'd added that. Well, if you made it to the end of this video, you're obviously interested in Whitetail Habitat Solutions, what I have to teach, and you will love my new web class series. The first one is how to design your whitetail property. It's out now. The link is in the description. I invite you to check it out. It's on my website. Can't wait to hear about it.